It's a regular board meeting, February 24th, 2025, 5:30 PM at Centerville Administration Office. Roll call, please.
And this is the public hearing stuff.
Yes, this is the public.
Berger.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Heffernan. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Liskus.
Here.
At this point, we would like to welcome any visitors that we may have. Okay. Next item is approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Vote, the agenda has been approved. Next item is the 2025 Howard Partial Roof Replacement Project.
Trying to think what all the stated, but I think you have some of the documents in your agenda or your packet here.
This is all insurance money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we had 9, was it, I believe?
Yes.
Companies make
8,
bids.
sorry,
8 companies, 3 of them were, what was the term she used?
Irregular.
Irregular bids, yeah, I was gonna say abnormal, but that's not right. Irregular bids, meaning either they didn't include something that they needed to include, or in the case of 2 of them, they were late. They actually walked in after the start time. So the bid that we have to award to an
JC.
JC
Installation.
Roofing and Installation. So that is the low bid on that project.
Anything else?
Not really,
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
All right, we're on item 5, public comments on the 2025 Howard Partial Roof Replacement Project. Do we have any public comments? Sounds like that's the only comment we're gonna get. Moving on, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Nice try.
Now we are ready for the regular board meeting where we always say that all students will learn well, become lifelong learners, and contribute positively to the society. We will call the meeting to order with a roll call.
Berger.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Heffernan. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Liskus.
Here.
At this point, we are again where we would like to welcome visitors. And if anyone has any public comment, this is the time for that. Seems as there's no public comment. Item 3, approve the agenda.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda has been approved. Item 4, approve minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes have been approved. Item 5 is old business, and it appears we have none. New business. We are ready for the student representative.
Okay, so NHS hosted a fundraiser for Valentine's Day. They sold carnations for $2. You can give it to any student or teacher. And girls state basketball made it to the second round. Boys bowling got 4th and girls got 3rd. Speech and FFA districts are March 1st. Mock Trial has their first competition on March 11th. There will be a blood drive on March 7th in the band room. Large group speech got 2 2s and 1 1. Individuals, we had an individual speech conference on Valentine's Day, and we ended up with 13 1 ratings, 3 2 ratings, and 1 3 rating. Kimber Everett took home a Best of Center award for her after dinner speech.
Very good.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
How did the strawberry sell, though, do you know?
I think that went pretty good. I bought some of the strawberries were good.
I went up there, there were strawberries flying over, and I realized I didn't put my order in, so.
They were pretty busy that day.
I feel like we needed to FFA needed to reach out more because there were a lot of teachers that said they wanted strawberries.
Well, next year we have something to build on, and that'll be a win.
Yeah,
Very good.
They all look good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Art.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Kelly.
Item B, resolution formally approving and adopting plan specifications, form of contract, estimated total cost of 2025 power partial roof replacement project.
Okay, I think here we were planning to work off of questions on this. Is there any questions from what's in the packet and what you've seen?
That bid for $423,000, correct?
Yeah,
I so moved we accept that bid.
and again, just to make clear that that's all insurance money too, for anybody that's looking at
The
it.
first resolution is for the plans.
Procedurally, we have to approve the plan.
Yeah.
before we can
Yeah,
approve
we
the
just
bid.
have to approve the plan.
So you've got on page, what is that, page number 10 of your packet, we've got the different things that we have to approve here.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, at this time, there will be a roll call vote.
Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Beckman. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes,
Liscus.
Yes.
motion carries.
Now we get to talk about the actual bid.
Item C,
Sorry.
consideration of possible action on resolution to award the bid on the 2025 power partial roof replacement project.
JC Roofing is out of South Sioux City, Nebraska, and again, this is 100% covered by insurance.
I so moved we approve the
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, excuse me, roll
I'm
call.
sorry, Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Beckman. Yes. Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes,
Liscus.
Yes.
motion carries. Item D, approval of fundraiser. Don't know what that is.
Okay, so you have a track fundraiser in here. Jared, do you have anything you want to add about what we've got on the document here?
So that one was just a late one, just because Ryan kind of took over both programs late and was kind of assessing the needs of what they might need. So that is basically going to pay for his 25% of a new timing system that they're going to get. So football is going to pay for 25%, track's going to pay for 25%, and the booster club's going to pay for 50%. So this fundraiser approval just basically helps him raise the money that he needs to pay for that timing system.
What kind of, again, fundraising is it? I mean, what do you?
I think it's one of the ones where they just kind of like, there's a link that people can follow and donate directly to the program. And it's one that doesn't take a percentage. So some of them, when you crowdsource like that, it'll take a percentage, and this one doesn't. So 100% of the proceeds will go to the track program.
Yeah. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the fundraising idea. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The fundraiser has been approved. Item E, approve first reading of the board policy 710.4.
There's a request, so employees were given a different meal charge policy than non-employee adults. And the request on food service on this is the employees have been allowed to charge $15 negative to an account. The request is to make that zero. Zero negative on an account with this. It also also changes how we notify parents. Instead of sending a note home, we're finding a lot more success from email, so we wanted to add that to the list. And with Infinite Campus, we'll continue to be able to use email as one of our tools. Sometimes it'll be a note in a backpack, sometimes it'll be an email. We kind of work with the family to figure out, we'll work with the family to see what fits them best. But prior to this, we didn't have the ability officially in board policy to use email.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of board policy 710.4. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item F, approve 1-year 28E sharing agreement for golf and track with Seymour Community School District.
So we've had a lot of discussion at the board table the last couple months, or couple meetings, I should say, about sharing agreements and the benefits to each district and how that impacts us. In this case, what I'm requesting, what I think Mike and I actually are requesting, because we kind of worked together a little bit on this one, is that for this spring season alone, we offer to Seymour an agreement that allows them to continue to do golf and track with us. Unfortunately, as we've been investigating our sharing agreements, we learned that there's never been a documented sharing agreement with Seymour for golf and trap. And that just had slipped through the cracks for apparently 12, 13, 14 years even. This does give us something official, so that if, say, heaven forbid, somebody would get hurt in a car on the way to a meet or something, we would have liability coverage and we'd be set because these students would be for that time under our purview. And at that point, that buys some time for some of the small schools, well, for Seymour specifically, to be able to find a coach for their programs for next year. Since it's kind of later in the season, or about to start the season, as Jared put on our activities item there. Just buys them a little bit of time for that. And I was asked to pass along from Scott, the superintendent at Seymour, that he's appreciative of the board for considering letting them be in for this year, so he has time to find a coach for next year.
You know, in reading through that, it seems like we have a lot of liability when they're here, of course.
Yeah.
What liability does Seymour have?
Well, and that's kind of the thing with sharing, yeah. Because once they're here and they're in our program, they're our student for that period of time. So it truly becomes the same liability that we have for any other student.
It's our culture.
Under our, yeah. But at least having an official sharing agreement, we're covered, that there's a reason that they're with us. It's not a, oh shoot, that kid randomly showed up and we should be taking care of them. So it makes it official.
Sounds good.
Handshake agreements don't work quite as well in the era of insurance claims. So this kind of gets us caught up a little bit better with the current times, at least for this year on this, and buys them some time to plan what they want to do next year.
So are there any other potential spring sports where we have student athletes from other districts that are going to participate with our group?
Yes, we, at the.
I'm sorry, let me paraphrase, let me change that. Where we don't have
A sharing agreement, not from what we can tell. We've talked around to our coaches to find out who they've got in their programs, and we're gonna continue to add this as an item with our coach meetings that we have at the beginning of the year and at each season. You know, a concern I would have if I am coaching an activity, if I had students from another district and didn't have an agreement in place, you could be personally liable for those kids to show up. So that's something that we want to make sure we're protecting our coaches. Just in case something bad would ever happen. You hate to have to think that way, but that's the world we live in now. You're always thinking about worst case scenario.
So I guess I have so have we had students request to be part of our teams? Because this
Yes.
is, why are we just bringing this up?
We have had that. In finding out about TRAP, we've had students who have been to meetings with our team too, and we weren't aware that they were from another district or that another district students were coming to our meetings. So as we've dug into this after hearing about the golf situation, we felt that the most fair thing to do would be to come to the board, make it kosher for a year, and give everybody the summer to plan for next year.
Maybe the other districts plan for their own programs.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have another question.
Yep.
Of the students that have requested this, did they open enroll out of our district?
One student that I know of has,
They open enroll out, but they want to use our programs.
yes.
That makes no sense. Okay.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
I don't know for a fact on track, but one student in both.
Okay.
Do we know total of how many students this would affect?
Do you remember that, Jared? I know we talked to the coaches.
I don't know the golf numbers.
I think golf is 2 or 3, it depends on if one kid goes.
Trap, I believe, is 7 or 8.
Does that sound right, Bryson? Is there coming
I've heard
from-
upwards of 4 or 5
Oh, 4 or 5 now.
per golf.
Okay, so yeah, it could be a good number then.
Yeah,
When I talked to the coach, it sounded like 2 or 3.
like I said, I think trap's about 8.
About 8.
Is that middle school, high school?
High school. I'm sure.
So if we do a sharing agreement, does it cover middle school as well? Or is this?
Well, it's sharing to our program, so yeah, those would be students that could be coming to us. Because we don't have a separate program per se.
Does it financially help us at all?
No.
No, we're kind of paying the
We're
cost.
paying them, when they open
I think that's Mike's point, is if somebody elects to open and roll out, and then wants to come back for our activities, all that state supplemental aid has gone to that other district.
School.
So we've lost that, which, affects our budget. And then it comes back and we end up paying for the activities that we have because they're going to a district that doesn't have it. And I think that's kind of,
And I guess along the liability part that we're talking about, we're paying liability insurance for our students and stuff, but they're not really our students, they're just piggybacking on a program that we offer that another school doesn't.
And I
And
think
they
that's
took our money.
where my understanding as a board, the direction the last 2 meetings has been, that's a practice we'd like to continue to review and discontinue in most cases. I would argue, one program that has kind of come up at the table for is swimming, and I asked Jared to run a list of all the schools that do swimming that host swimming as a program. We are the smallest school district in the state that hosts swimming, so it's kind of I think a point of pride for us that we have that. I believe some of those others probably share. Some of like Waterloo schools share with each other, and some of the Dubuque schools share with each other. So, there are some programs that it just makes sense because a school our size can't really do that kind of program on its own. In the case of some of these others, it may be appropriate to consider whether the sharing agreements in place are beneficial or detrimental to the district. And so the other sharing agreements we have in place include football with Moulton for another 4 years after this year. It can be exited out of any year, but really, we signed a 5-year this fall. We can make decisions as a board however we like, but we will have the re-up of swimming that will bring, hopefully, in March, probably the second meeting in March, as we discuss out kind of the financial pieces a little bit with the schools to make sure they're comfortable with what we're proposing. Though they've already expressed that they're willing to pay their fair share to be a part of that. I'm trying to think, soccer was with Moulton and Moravia, am I right about that, Jared?
Molten Moravia and
Seymour? And then, there was one more, wasn't there?
Mark, I guess I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So, you talked a couple meetings ago about the financial sharing of the program.
Yeah.
Would that be in place with this if we approved it tonight?
So this specific 2080 doesn't have that in it. If that's something the board wanted me to revise, I would need permission to allow those students to attend if we wanted them this season on the premise that we need to come back to that, and I could start a conversation with Scott. My advice would be to carry forward for one last year as is, because at least now we're fully officially covered, which feels a heck of a lot better to me to be covered. And
If we
then,
don't approve, then those students aren't in those activities, and then
Correct.
they're there too.
Correct.
Yeah, paragraph 3 says the financial responsibilities, the way I read
Which one? Oh, financially, yeah.
And Mark, with trap specifically, one of our volunteer coaches is from Seymour's.
There we go, that's, yeah.
I just want to point that out, so that they do help provide an adult to assist with that program. So I would advocate kind of similar to what you're saying, but I'm kind of addressing what they're saying. You could potentially look at adding an amendment where a student that open enrolls out is not allowed to come back as part of that agreement.
And the thing that we have to be careful about with that is right now, that's not getting a very good blessing from our attorney. And I can ask her to write an official opinion more in depth on that, if that's something that we at the board table want to read. But in general, it sounded, what she had said to me is that it seems like a discriminatory practice that we might want to be careful
it.
about.
So it's all or nothing.
That's generally what she recommended.
I know this is not one, but I'm in favor in moving forward here before too long with ending all sharing agreements.
Okay.
We're competing for students.
I feel like we should honor what we've put in place for this year, but we need to take a serious look at, we're trying to gain students through our advertising that we're doing, and it just doesn't make sense to me to try to get students that get,
Kind of
you know what I'm
allow.
saying, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you guys are saying the same
Yes.
thing.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I don't want to penalize the kid right now.
Yeah.
No,
Because they didn't expect it to do that. But I think going forward, we're the district that has invested millions of dollars in infrastructure. And to allow, they can allow them to open or roll out, and then just come back for sports. I don't think we're being good fiduciary stewards for our taxpayers who pay for those things. And that we probably need to look at let them open and roll here in the future policy.
Well, insurance costs so much money anymore. And if something happens, then it goes up all the time. So that's
Jared.
just a lot of responsibility.
Eric, when do we do the counts to determine, because with these the sharing agreements depends on what classes we go in certain sports, correct?
Correct.
So when do we do
And
those?
So that, they go off the October count numbers. I reached out to the boys union specifically about football, because I wanted to make sure that the Molten one wouldn't finagle us in a class situation this year, and he said it would not, because that was something, if it was gonna bump us up, I would have brought to you guys to discontinue, because we wouldn't wanna get bumped up.
But if we have 20 kids, it's gonna affect.
It changes your beds
Yeah.
enrollment, yeah.
Swimming is a one-class sport, so it doesn't impact you there. The thought process when we did those soccer ones in the fall was just to make sure that we'd be able to have a team this year. It actually looks like we'll have enough Centerville kids to make that happen without the sharing agreements, which is a positive. The golf ones were already in place before.
Or at least,
Or, yeah,
Assume.
or assume they were in place beforehand, as was the
trap. When we talked to the trap head coach, she shared with us that she thought that started around the time of the tornado at Seymour. So I don't know if maybe there were just some good feelings about like, hey, come over with us, we'll take care of you, maybe shared by teachers, because if there's one thing you can say about us teacherly people, we tend to have pretty big hearts. And I think that might have been a case of a big heart trying to do just good for kids and.
Well, yeah, I think we let them use our gym and everything whenever we've been in. And that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So how soon would we need to make decisions as far as next year?
As far as next year, we could certainly talk about that. So April 30th is the date by which you're supposed to do sharing agreements typically. So it'd be nice if we did it in the early April meetings to review what we've got. We can put that as an agenda item with each sharing agreement listed out, either in the second March meeting or the first April meeting to give us a little time to take a look at that, if that's the will of the board.
Maybe we could get our lawyer involved in that too.
Yeah,
I think moving forward on this one, I'll make a motion to approve the sharing agreement.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the sharing agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. One no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item G, approval of commencement for exchange student.
So we have a unique opportunity right now for our CHS students in that we have a foreign exchange student from Georgia, the country, not the state. I feel like you always have to say that. Georgie, actually, is his name. This is Georgie, and I'm gonna not say your last name because I'll get it wrong. But Georgie's with us. He is actually qualified in his home high school back in Georgia to graduate this year. What we're requesting is, rather than doing transfer credits to try to figure that out and do all that around countries, he wants to graduate from his home high school. But we would like to ask the board's permission, because it technically doesn't follow board policy per se, to allow him to walk at commencement. Since he is qualified to graduate as a senior in his home country and has successfully, I'm not trying to break any FERPA here, but done a wonderful job on all of his classes at CHS and has been involved in 5 or 6 different activities by the end of the year, I think. Kind of helps when you live with the activities director, they usually sign you up for things.
Well, they do sign me up, but it's mostly because of my interest. Like
Yeah.
football, wrestling, soccer, track, mock trial.
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything.
and so on.
So Georgie's been a really great member of our student body at CHS this year. I think a lot of kids will be sad to see him leave, but hopefully maybe there's talk of sticking around in the country for some college potentially, so maybe they'll get to see him a little bit. But we're just asking your permission to slightly bend that rule a little bit, because technically he would qualify here, he just isn't gonna transfer those credits to here.
I'm all in favor of this.
Yes, I make a motion that we walk across our
I
state.
think you're getting a cultural experience that could affect you for the rest of your life. And why not, if he's, or any student, I think the policy should be, is in academic good standing and is in their senior year, they ought to be able to walk. And, because it costs us nothing, and I think this is part of the experience. In 1976, we had a foreign exchange student from Australia that lived with us. We went to Catholic high schools, she went to the public high schools. She walked through that graduation, those are senior year. And so I don't understand when 50 years later, we're not doing that. So I'm all in favor of it.
Can I make a speech, please?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great. And also, I just wanted to point out that back home I'm missing all this experience, so
Yes.
I'm not gonna be able to get back in time to prom, graduation, all that. So I think it would be really good to get this cultural exchange and this experience out here and get this done with my new friends. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I think the exchange program is so good, and I appreciate Jared as well for taking you on. But, you know, it's such a valuable thing for our school to have exchange students. You know, Grover's been involved in it a long time. We've had a lot of our students go to other countries, and the only problem is my son went, and he's never come back. Or he's come back, but he don't stay very long.
Georgie set a high bar for the next foreign exchange student that the Johnstons choose to host, I think. He really fits in, seems exactly like their son the whole time, so he's been really good. So yeah, I'd really appreciate it if he could walk it.
I make a motion to approve.
I think Carol made
Sorry.
No.
Did you already make the motion?
Well, I kind of butted in and did it.
Oh, okay.
No, I make a motion that we let this nice young man walk across our stage at graduation.
No, second, sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's
There we
okay.
go.
We have a motion and a second to allow the commencement for an exchange student. I would, if there's any further discussion, I would add in discussion with students and teachers that it's not been just a cultural experience for him, but a cultural experience for all of us. And I want to thank you for sharing everything you've done.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I wanna, one thing, and I'm gonna, I beat it, every year, it seems like, so, I know this, but this makes a lot more sense to let him walk across stage than some of the kids that never touch foot in our high school that go to commencement. So, this makes a lot more sense.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item H, approve summer project bids.
Aaron, anything?
Yes, I brought 2 bids to you today. After talks with our lawyer, it's been decided, and after talks with Mark and Lisa, that that bleacher project is going to require an architect. We tried to avoid it to save taxpayer dollars.
Ironically, the architect said it's not required, and then the 2 lawyers, because we both went and emailed the lawyer at the same time, different lawyers at ours, so, sorry, but we have a second opinion, and both the lawyers agreed that, it is the correct thing to do, to use the architect on this one, so. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but these are 2 items that I'm basically bringing forward from previous years. Within the upcoming months, I'll probably have a few more to add on to this list, but one of them is to add, replace the old and dated carpet at the preschool. And then to update the fire system to strobes and voice at the preschool as well.
Make a motion to approve these bids to give Julie a little bit of attention in the building. See, that's the benefit of walking through the building and making a case.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the summer project bid as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item I, AEA services update.
I just wanted to make sure to share one of these quarterly reports with you, and I'll make sure I get the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter shared to you as we receive those 2. These are the reports that we're to get each quarter from the AEA based on where we are in our spending with them. It's super confusing how it is on here, but I can kind of explain a few things, and when I do, you're going to discover that I am far too frugal, and Julie has been my accomplice in being too frugal. So we underspent what we could have spent with them, and I think we've got some plans, some training that we really need for some special education associates that we're gonna be able to afford, using our AEA money this spring as a result, or early summer, so. What you've got on here is it breaks it down by category, so like you get the online resources, the learning online, physical media, all those, if it's in the light gray, that is one-time cost. So they put it on 1st quarter, but it's billed for the year there, so if that makes sense, just so you kind of see what that does for us. The rest of them, it'll show you how many units per quarter, and then the cost per quarter. So down at the very bottom, you've got our balance per quarter, or per balance by month or quarter. That last number there in dark, in the bold, is actually how much money is left at the end of that quarter. So we started with 177,968 plus 1797 because we committed 100% of our flow through to the AEA. So they added that nearly 18,000 on. And in the 1st quarter, by doing all of the 1st quarter items and the one-time funds, we dropped down to 130 with them. So we were on track for our spending there, but then we only spent an additional 18,000-ish to the end of 2nd quarter. So we do have some trainings coming up that'll spend a little bit more. 2nd quarter was kind of always going to be a little bit weaker quarter for us probably. But we probably have been a little more careful than we needed to be. We were afraid there wouldn't be enough money in there to do all the things we wanted to do, so we didn't want to get to the end of the year and not have money to cover something. Now I'm not gonna say we can go crazy, because I can't go crazy on anything, it's not in my personality, but we can meet a lot more needs, and we should probably plan to meet more needs earlier in the year, next year than we did this year. Just kind of a learning experience with this. Typically when we do a budget with the school district, it's how little can we spend to get there, and we definitely followed that to a T here. Any questions about this document? Because it is kind of weird and confusing.
So on the consultant professional development coaching, $900 per unit.
Mm-hmm.
How long or what is a unit?
I think that's a day,
Yeah,
right?
it's per day.
$900 a day.
Mhm.
That's what, $112 an hour? Somebody better at math?
Yeah, it would be. right?
So on a 2,000 hour annual basis, that's about a $220,000 burden rate for that employee. And they're
Mhm.
not working 2,000 hours a year. They're probably what? Are they in the summer?
Some of them, not all of them though.
So we're getting charged for somebody at the rate of over $200,000 a year.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll guarantee it, they're not getting paid that.
What would that be? What would that?
Well,
Okay.
okay,
Our
so
literacy-
people like that, would be- sorry.
No, a literacy consultant is the major one, math consultant, that's that line right there is those people, or we had Julie Thomas, who's a, I don't know what her title is now. Yeah, behavior specialist, or, yeah, we've had some autism training from people like that too, so, I think they have that big of a cost to cover than like those people have secretarial work and things like that are not being billed, but that's how they get their system.
Okay, and I'm not speaking of the individual providing the
No, I
service or
know,
the quality
yeah.
of service.
Yeah, I get it.
It's what the administrative is charging us to do that.
I think that's the trick, right? So you're talking about the administrative overhead being tacked onto each
Right.
service to cover the people that need the help to make sure the lights stay on.
The actual.
Cost.
If you want to talk about AEA reform, I would say the legislature needs to do, this is what you get to do the overhead of the AEA, and you pay the district, or you charge them on a billable rate based on what the actual cost is. That's the way it should work in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, they just didn't leave, I mean, they left 10% of the flow through for this year and not for next year. But they really don't get any money up front to do the administrative duties, so. I know ours, at least when I talked to Nathan last, was sharing a SBO with somebody. You know how that ended up working out? I don't, or maybe they did or didn't. They were looking to share a lot of those operational people with either districts or municipalities or somebody with whom they could share some of those duties.
I would say though, this year, I feel like we've had a lot more intentional, because we've had to be so like cognizant of the money situation, and I think we've actually gotten more service for our dollars than we probably ever have.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good outcome from what the legislator did to us, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we pay the AEA consultants that come in for special ed, for the IEPs and all that stuff? That's state mandated, right?
Right.
And that's a
Do
whole
we have to
different,
pay
That's not
for-
on this.
that's a whole
So
different.
do we have to pay for that at all?
No, that's a whole different fund.
That's a different
From us.
Okay.
It is a flow-through fund,
Yeah.
I understand, but it's
And
not.
that funding
this
is
one.
changing.
We'll get to keep a percentage of that next year
10%.
and decide how, 10%, yeah, that's a popular number with all this AEA work. And they asked us a little bit about what we wanna do with that, and we have some ideas that we've talked through, but still need to get an idea of what that exactly looks like, because there have been, differing viewpoints shared by DE representatives and legislators to school districts around the state about what that 10% has to or can be used for. So until we can get a clear and concise answer, I think we're struggling to decide what that 10% should look like for us.
Also, I guess, do we know, are these fees and numbers gonna stay the same moving into next school year, or
They've
what?
got, but we have had a meeting with them, and many of the numbers will be similar, but, because the 10% that they had gotten to keep is gone, now we'll have a little bit different, so like the van fee, some of those yearly items cost differently, and the district, so the online resources, you can à la carte individual items for a certain amount per student, or you can buy the whole package for a certain amount. So we met with Angela Livesey from the AEA, who's kind of in charge of lining up district services, and I think we found some items we really like. We found some ways that this money, if we're as frugal as we have been and it truly meets our needs, we may be able to relieve our general fund a little bit by sharing some items with the AEA. And using our AEA dollars to pay for them. So potentially some student support to increase our amount of student supports available in the district. Just kind of waiting to see what staff they'll have to allow that to happen. But we could see an increase in, I don't want to say counselors per se, but counseling, social working, that kind of thing, for our kids without costing us additional general fund dollars.
And it's very more transparent in the fact that like they also just sent us how much of the media services have we used, so we pay a certain money for every student, but next year we can pick one of those programs versus all of them if we don't have that level of engagement from our kids or our teachers. So I feel like that's a good thing too.
We did request, for next year, a quote for English language learner services, through the AEA, because we do have a teacher in-house that does that, but if we could use AEA dollars to pay for that, rather than taking a period that teacher could be teaching something else, and then we could get somebody who does that for their whole day, they may have a little more, time to do that, and a little bit more ability to serve our kids there. Though our person who we contract does a wonderful job, so I don't wanna say anything negative there.
Any other questions on the AEA services? Moving on, preliminary 25-26 budget.
Hey, Georgie. Second one.
First I wanna look at this one that was sitting on your table, because some stuff that's in this packet, let's talk about this first. This comes from Piper Sandler from Matt Gillespie. So our debt reserve levy, or our debt levy was $2.70, and each year, the payments that we have to make for those GO bonds, it doesn't always equal $2.70. So, we have to look at whether or not we can do an advanced surplus levy that will actually save the taxpayers funds at the end of paying all of it off, and if it's worth it to go ahead and do that extra levy. This is the first year which Matt Gillespie says that it is something that we should do if the board chooses to do. So if you look at the lower right hand there where it says FY 2026 surplus levy, you'll look at our taxable valuation times the 270, and that is the amount of dollars that we can levy for. Our payments this year are $724,695, so that leaves an amount of $206,801. You can only do it in increments of 5,000. So if the board so chooses, we want to move forward with going ahead and levying the extra $205,000. So just want to make sure.
And that's within the rate that Lisa's gonna share
Right,
today.
right.
Is this the one, I think last year you brought it up, it was only gonna be like 20 or 30,000?
Yeah.
So it wasn't more than-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my question then, because we've always talked about always keeping 270
Right.
and paying bonds off for the state. It's always been something we've talked about for years. So my question is, how does that actually get paid off? Is there certain bonds that Matt's saying we need to go to, or do we just build a fund until we can?
My understanding from Matt, when I talked to him, is that it's when when it's called.
Callable?
Which is
So we're gonna accrue this for that.
2028 is when
Oh.
these are callable. There's a
Oh,
line
okay,
there, so that,
June 1st, 2028.
yep. It goes into an escrow account.
Yeah.
And it just,
So it won't be touched for anything else, but just when the bond is callable, we can use that to help pay it off earlier.
so the amount that we would have for savings would be 53,300 down there.
So this would add another 200 to that?
No, this is the amount.
So that'd be the savings for you.
Right, right.
It takes that much interest off.
Oh, so this
Yeah.
would save $53,000
Right.
in interest?
Yeah.
Gotcha, now I understand the spreadsheet. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so just moving forward, obviously enrollment is what drives our budget. So that first page shows the enrollment and where we're at with a loss of 66 students approximately from 2024 count to 2025 count. And we are projecting a 20 decrease for years moving forward. The second page shows the open enrollment trend. We were just kind of discussing that earlier. So the red is open enrolled in and the white is open enrolled out. And then the bottom line there is the difference. So if you'll notice it, we had a jump from 72.4 to 92.2. Some things that are pending legislation is obviously they haven't set the SSA amount yet. So we have to send out our proposed statement with a number that's not been set yet. So moving forward in this packet, I'm showing two different scenarios because.
And the reason that's important is the state legislature has 30 days after the governor's condition of the state address to set state supplemental aid, and has failed to do so the majority of the last 10 years. So yet again, we're in a position because we're a district under budget guarantee where our property tax rate is greatly changed by what state supplemental aid they set for the year. So at least Lisa's got a lot of documentation to share on that.
So we've been advised to go ahead and do the highest amount, so that's what we're gonna do. The next page is just a chart kind of showing what SSA has been historically. And the two, we're working off of 2% or 2.25%.
Because the House approved 2.25% and the Senate approves 2, when they've yet to truly come together on the answer.
The next page is historical district cost per pupil for Centerville and what it would be for 2% and 2.25%. And then this year we're in a budget guarantee, so I kind of, I'm gonna show you 2% and 2.25%. So if you just look at, I'm gonna let you know how it's calculated. So that top box, last year's regular program district cost, if you, the yellow highlight is $10,444,425. So 101% of that is the blue number, $10,548,869. But since our decrease in enrollment is the purple amount there, that means that our budget guarantee has to be $427,221 at a 2%.
And just to make a note, if that 427,000 number looks pretty familiar, remember we've been talking about that being the number that we needed to save based on the enrollment change this year. So it just kind of pans itself out in the numbers.
And then on the bottom box, the difference there is $403,000 if it's at 2.25%. And you'll notice that $104,444 is the same on each box, because that's the actual amount of new money that we'll receive. So it doesn't matter because we're on budget guarantee.
So in the case of a 2% increase, if the House and the Senate would come together on 2%, it will actually increase the amount that comes from local property tax on the budget guarantee. But if the state would do 2.25, because we're a property poor district, our valuations aren't as high to our pupil count, it would actually give us more state aid and less of the local property tax. So 2.25 set by the House and the Senate together would reduce our local property tax burden.
Right.
Wow.
The next,
Yeah.
We'd be happy.
the next page is just showing you what the board controlled levy rates are. We can't do cash reserve right now because we're sitting good in that area, so that is 0. Regular PEPAL is 33 cents, and our management fund is gonna be 94 cents this year, with instructional support $1.29, and then the surplus debt service, if you so choose to do that, is 59 cents. That's just for the surplus.
Okay.
Okay. The next page is the voter controlled levies. You have your voted PEPAL at 102 and your,
The 210 is what it would be, the 60 is what we have.
Right,
Yeah,
so
that's why it's
the
not 270.
two, right, so the
Okay.
210 is what we would need to make payments this year.
Got it.
So since we could go to 270, we can do that advance levy.
I knew you didn't do a typo, I just diminished it.
And then the next page is the state controlled levy, which is the school foundation formula. And the difference is there at 2% and 2.25%. Just a little note to always try to keep track, expiration of our voted levies are both 2031 for voted PEPAL and instructional support, because we just did that here recently. The next page is just showing the GO bond payments and sales tax revenue bond payments. So that is almost 1.4 million is our payments for the year. The 2021 GO bonds paid off 2041, and the 2022 GO bonds are 2026. So the next page, and I meant to put FY26, I'm sorry, I didn't want to waste paper by reprinting, so. That, it shows a comparison of what each levy is right now and the overall tax rate, and then what it would be at 2% and what it would be at 2.25%. So if you'll notice, if it's at 2.25, then we're just 1 cent below where we are now. And if it's set at 2%, it's a 16.71 with the ability
6 cents higher.
to change that. Yeah.
So that's the difference to local taxpayers there.
So our proposal, that the statement that's gonna go out to the taxpayers is gonna be the higher amount, because you can't change it if it.
Yeah, you can't adjust up, you can adjust down.
So even with, so if the board opts to do the additional, I don't have the right words.
The surplus.
Yeah, the surplus levy, we're still within 4 cents of our tax rate.
Right,
And paying off $53,000.
that's why I thought that we should do
Interest.
that. Sure.
I thought it was interesting, I went to the council meeting last week, and they had kind of the same discussion about going with the top one,
Yeah.
because you couldn't go down.
Yeah.
So do you have anything for Matt that says how many years, or is it just, we have to wait and see every year to do the surplus?
He said he would have all that information if you choose to do that at the meeting. I can get before then too, but.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So, I mean, is this something we're gonna be able to do every year, and will we be able to accelerate the payment?
I think that we have
There's
the
more than
ability,
1 year.
yeah, you could do it
At least.
any year that you're not at 270, but whether or not it's gonna be worth it is.
And that, I don't remember, there's a chart that we had at one time about what years are 270 and not projected, so.
Yeah.
When do we have to make that decision?
We would have to do it at the next meeting. He wants to know tomorrow. So,
So we need to give you feedback, because we don't have an action item.
right. And it doesn't take action items. He said that as long as if I just put it on the budget, that's fine, because we can always come down if you guys decide not to.
I think we need to do it, so.
But if you give me the consent to move forward, I'll get the information and then you'll approve it at the next
I
meeting.
think we're just asking if anybody says they don't want us
Right.
to do that.
I'm just showing you what it is with the surplus.
Even then, look at the property tax rate from 2020 to now, I mean,
1873.
we've still been able to keep that down.
That's the thing that sometimes gets lost, is we were at 1873. We've lowered it $2, and that includes a $2.70 levy for physical infrastructure.
And
We
we
may
lowered it
still
every
get-
year.
We've lowered it
Yeah,
every year.
we may still get a cent lower.
We thought we'd lower it $1. We've lowered it $2.
Yeah, so I think you guys are already on the next page. I just put it depends on the SSA of where we'll be at there. And then the next page is, not tax rate, but tax dollars, because that's the statement that's going out. Is that, it doesn't, I mean, it'll show the tax rate when it goes out to the public, but the tax dollars is what we're supposed to be reporting.
forget if you talked about it, this is the time to mention that the item that goes out is a wildly inaccurate
Yeah,
item.
I will,
that the
I'll go
state-
ahead and let you guys do this. It's, I mean, it's so,
Because last year was the first year of that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's set up on that required reporting is a tax rate that would never exist. Um,
I'm gonna try to explain this.
It's hard to, because
Yeah.
it's so fictitious in how they create it.
So if you look at the farthest from, or the farthest left, that is what the tax rate and the tax dollars are for this year, FY '25. The middle column is what your tax rate would be if you levied the exact same amount of dollars based on the assessed valuation. So that middle column is not something that we would ever do because, number one, the general fund levy, we are on budget guarantee, so we're gonna need to levy more for general fund. The management was at 713. We don't need to levy that much for management. So the same for debt service. That was what we needed for our payments last year. We don't need that amount for this year. So that middle column is based on dollars that we would never levy. It's a different amount that we're levying. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I don't know how it's gonna make sense to the public.
It doesn't.
That's the concern with it.
And then the last column is the dollars that we want to levy. And if you notice, it's not the same. So if you look at your packet, it's 5.7 million, but on here it's 5.4. But the reason because that's another thing. Doesn't have utility, it does not include, the statement doesn't include utility replacement tax. So that doesn't even match. But that's the way it's set up, so there's nothing I can do about
It's fake news, that's what I would call it, kind of a fake news
that.
document.
So, yeah, so this is gonna go out, I mean, a condensed version of this goes out to the public, the county auditor sends that out. But we have to post this to all of our media sources, to the newspaper, and on our website. So if you get questions about this, I would say you should probably send them to Mark and I, and we'll do the best that we can, unless you think that you can explain it. But
This is the state's way of playing whose line is it anyway. The rules are made up and the numbers don't matter.
Well, and it's
Just wait
also,
until we finalize our budget.
and the other thing, it's based on, this is based on the 2.0.
Yeah,
So if it ends up being 2.25, then this doesn't mean anything.
right.
So,
Even that last column, which is closer to real,
right,
not quite real, but closer to real.
so I just wanted to make that statement.
So 30 days after the condition of the state is when that's due for this very reason.
I'd like to put the next one in just to let everyone know the overlapping tax authority. So if you'll notice, the school district has, we decreased and we tried, and we maintained for a few years here. And so the city is in College and County. And I get that information from Piper Sandler, so if it's not correct, somebody let me know, but that's where I get that information from. Just some things we're waiting on. Final levy rate is subject to change from what we published. After the Department of Management releases the rate, we may lower it, but we can raise it from what was published, except in the event of an increase as I say.
Which then the Department of Management does that increase. That's not something that we get to do anything with or have any say on.
And then our district income tax receipts are not released from the Department of Management, but I believe that they are, so just forget about that. And then my final thing is the timeline. I know we go over this a lot, but I just wanna, so tonight was the board budget workshop. We're just kind of going over preliminary numbers. I'll have the rest of it all at another time. March 11th. I printed out the wrong thing. Yeah. Well, okay, so March 10th is when the county auditor will start mailing out those statements. So however long it takes for the citizens to get that. I'm sorry, I have the wrong dates here. Second meeting in March is when we'll have our first proposed tax hearing. And then the second meeting in April, April 28th, is when we'll have our final budget meeting, and then everything has to go to the county auditor by April 30th. So that's the preliminary budget discussion. Anybody have any questions? So, my final one is, so does the board wish for me to continue talking with Matt about the advanced surplus levy? I mean, you can always vote it down at the meeting. I'd like to just go ahead and get everything going. And then just, also we have to have statements on this, letter that goes out. And I'm just letting you know the statement, why the tax dollars have increased. And, the statements I'm gonna say is because that we're on the budget guarantee due to the combination of declining enrollment and low state supplemental system. And the budget guarantee is all property tax. And then also that the district chose to reduce future year interest costs by paying the additional bond principal in the upcoming year by levying the full rate authorized by the voters.
Very good.
You get, I think, 140 characters for that, or it's
Yeah,
a limited number of characters.
Yeah, if it all fits, if it doesn't fit, then I'll probably, take some words out. That's all I have.
Any further discussion or recommendations? Moving on to item K.
Motion to approve as presented.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second to approve all the personnel and business procedures. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Director reports.
Kate, you almost always have to go last. Why don't you go first this time?
Okay,
Oh, there she is.
financially, as far as balances, pretty much the same as last meeting. Had some good conversations with parents. Just keep trying to work with them and help them to find a way that they can help take care of their balances. I do see continued increase in response to our weekly negative or low balance emails that get sent out. So that's good. Been working with Belinda, we're looking at some programs through the state that hopefully we can incorporate into our food service program. We're at the very, very beginning, seeing what we can work out with OPA and what we qualify for. So I hope to have more information on some of those programs in the near future. We've got breakfast week coming up, first week in March, and we've got some fun new menu items for that. So we'll have information out to kids and families about that.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dave? Nope. Who's next?
Brad.
Yeah, most of the chart in there, that just shows our average daily attendance going through the year. Kind of up and down. Actually, we kind of held our own pretty well in January. A lot of cold and sickness going around, so we'll see what the February numbers look like. That we have last week or so, we've about 10 families got referred to the county attorney because they've met the threshold of 10% of the semester. So.
Do you have an idea of kind of where we're sitting versus some neighboring districts? I mean, is it kind of all about the same, or if you're not
I really don't know. I don't think a lot of people publicize that. I saw some news reports
Right.
that
Yeah.
we're doing a lot better than some of those metro schools. I know that,
Yeah.
even per capita, so.
People are not very forthcoming with this data when we have our meetings.
Nobody shares bad news.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
I don't think it's terrible by any stretch. I guess I'd be curious to look back and see some historical pasts to
Yeah.
see where we've been, but.
It's certainly not at pre-COVID levels, but I think it's an improvement so far this year.
I would agree on that.
Any questions for Brad? Who's next?
How about Mr. Kincaid?
Currently working with Indian Hills to try to get a training here in Centerville that would get some bus driver's license. I've got one young lady that has passed her test and she's ready to go. They told me that we need to have at least 2 people enrolled to start the program. Working pretty hard on another one, so I'm cautiously optimistic we'll have two people that currently work for the district go through that. So.
Is that 2-week program?
Yeah, well, it's 8 days, so Monday through Thursday, 2 weeks. So hopefully we plan on starting it next week, hopefully if I can get this other gal, get her permit passed, and hopefully have 2 sub-bus drivers, so.
A public thank you to Sarah Lynn for watching our meeting on Facebook and seeing that was a need and immediately starting to work with her contacts at Indian Hills to try to get this class offered.
We're not on
downtown.
Facebook tonight, there's the boys basketball game.
Oh,
We're on the app and we're on the website.
so we can't ask for any help tonight because it's not gonna come.
Unless they're on the app or the website.
Yeah.
Unless they scour back through and watch,
Right.
so, yeah.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
after all the discussion we had at the last meeting, I had this question. You sometimes need activity drivers after schools and so forth. Do you sometimes need to drive they're not Tahoes, but whatever they are?
Traverse or
Yeah,
just a vehicle.
Traverse. Is there a need to drive those?
So, sometimes.
And is there a licensing required? In other words, could I do that with a regular private driver's license, provide that service to the district without going, I'm just thinking, is there other ways?
Typically
to
it's done by a coach and they're not paid as a bus driver.
Okay.
I guess.
So you can do a volunteer.
We do have some volunteers.
Yeah,
that have
I would say it would be
sometimes
probably a
taken on.
volunteer.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was an option to relieve a burden on if you're looking.
Yeah,
for
I mean, there's several people that do different activities, but they're strictly, it's a volunteer.
Okay.
We had a really great person step up, Brian Keeler stepped up, we were trying to transport basketball, needed another Suburban, and he stepped up to drive, was it middle school maybe?
Yeah, he did middle school basketball a couple times.
Tell you what, if you're willing to drive middle school, that's something, so that's pretty awesome.
So I paid him a little bit for off an activity deal for that, so, just because he was giving up his time and driving, but most of the time we cover that, like myself or a coach will just jump in and drive it.
Or your assistants, I think,
Yeah,
have done a little bit of
yeah,
that too.
he's available.
But, so you just have to have somebody on the volunteer agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Kincaid? Who's next?
Aaron?
Okay, just a couple of new things we've done, I don't have a lot to update on. Jared had ordered and replaced the wall mats for the basketball wall mats in the gym at Lakeview. And then we took the older ones that were there, still in good condition, and repurposed them into a high school gym. The PE coaches and other coaches seem to really enjoy that. We installed new hand sink, stainless steel hand sink, and 3-compartment sink at the preschool kitchen about a week ago. And a few other small upgrades. And I am currently working with FRK and EMC. FRK is finalizing the drawings for the Lakeview band room project. Once they finalize those and Adam approves them, I will start to collect bids for that. I would assume that should start within the next couple weeks. Still on track to be completed this summer.
Any other questions for Aaron? Mr. Taylor, who's next?
Cameron,
Just kind of getting ready for ISAPS testing's gonna be coming up soon. We got an esports grant, or what is it?
a STEM best.
STEM grant, so we're kind of redoing part of the esports room with some extra funding, and me and Jared have been working on that and kind of getting that planned out, so getting
And that
pretty
grant
excited to have
also
that.
Some academic benefits to beyond esports, just want to make sure they have that. In case they use that as evidence on our grant. Then
I already told him he's teaching a class out of there this next year, so he's ready.
He's ready. Any other questions for Cameron? Mr. Taylor?
Jared,
Mine's just all up there, and there's apologize for the lack of pictures. I kind of threw it together quickly after that last busy weekend to meet the deadline. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free, but it's kind of all I've grabbed for you guys.
that last busy weekend was a huge success too. With two, I do count the wrestling meet as a postseason event? That
Yeah,
one?
it's a two-way district qualifier for the boys
So
junior.
2 postseason events in the same gym over the course of a day with, what, 45 minutes to turn it over, an hour to turn it over? That was amazing.
Who's next?
Julie?
Mine's pretty much there too, just, the Achieve portal is the IEP system that was kind of, new a few years ago, and they're, getting to the parent portal. Thanks to Sam and the district office here, we got all those sent out to parents today, so that they'll have the information they need to set those accounts up as they get rolled out to this, from the state. So there's, I'm sure, some buzz about that, but that'll allow parents access to all their IEP, documents and information, at their fingertips with the web-based system, so exciting. And then we also had an IDA DA meeting, which I explained here what that is. We've been in process of that for the last couple of years. Had another great meeting this morning, but just can't say enough things about our instructional coaches. I gave them another duty this year of helping with this SDI coaching, which has really benefited our 612 staff in the special education world, and got us some great things moving forward, and excited about that. But without those 3 ladies, I would have had to have taken that on, or we would have had to have put it on someone else as a burden, and they just do a great job with all of that coaching, and another wonderful way of utilizing them. So I'm glad that we have them, and in our meeting today, we talked about how lucky we are of that, because other districts are facing that it's not going as well because they don't have that same infrastructure. So thankful for those ladies and their willingness to be a part of something that they didn't always necessarily know everything about. So it's been a great few months of that, and wrapping up some of the training and moving forward. So we'll get a new designation in the fall. We'll see what that looks like.
Any questions?
Just comments. I'd like to say thank you for the pictures, the littles in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did have part of my job.
It was kind of funny. Picked the kids up from school this morning and come down and going past the preschool, and my youngest, who's 4th grade now, he's like, man, I miss preschool. That was so fun. Keep in mind that was 2020. And also keep in mind that we literally had to pry him off of my wife's leg to get him to get into this class. So I laugh at that, but I love seeing the little kids.
Yeah.
Just, we do get, we kind of, I don't want to say forget about them over there.
Oh, yeah, thanks to Aaron, he's like bringing all kinds of stuff to the preschool this year, so I'm feeling pretty awesome about that. And the new playground equipment, the kids loved it. I actually subbed in our 3-year-old room the day that they got to play on it, so it was a lot of fun to watch them try to be real patient. As you see in this one picture, they're like waiting in line to do things, so it's really been fun. So thanks, Aaron, for getting that all situated too.
Any other questions? Moving on.
Great transition to principal reports, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Julie just gave hers, so thank you. Brian?
Yeah, got a lot of good things in there. I'll just kind of cover one quick thing, I guess. I'll pick one thing of each here. So student achievement wise, we've had some math interventions being done. Kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade. So I got some data there for you. We've had, every time they do rounds, and every time they've done a round, the kids have achieved what they needed to and filled the gap that they needed to. So we've had some good luck with that, and our teachers are doing hard work, and it's paying off. So that's, we've shared that with the teachers, but we want to share that with you as well, because some great work being done, and the intervention is being successful. I got some pictures and stuff there. I did want to give a shout out though, because it also, more was our goalie today as part of this, but we had our fourth grade students went to Alphins County Courthouse, and shout out to Ty Stewart for that, because he did a good job setting it up with our fourth grade team. I know they're going back out there again, I think, but that was great. I know the kids are really loving that as being part of that mock trial process. And then we also checked out our check-in, check-out system. Not that we weren't doing some things, but and this is all positive, but with having our counselors having 2 this year, and me and Andy coming from different backgrounds, we kind of found out through discussion that we're all doing things a little differently. So we've had some great discussion, and we're kind of consolidating and getting it all in one spot, and then we created kind of our student support team that we're meeting bi-weekly to kind of get on the same page. Like, hey, who are you meeting with, and what are you doing? And making sure we all got on the same page. So we met last week, and we just this week started to do this new rollout of check-in, check-out, where we're talking with students and who's being the champion, and I think that's going to go really well. Not that things weren't going well, but I think that we will know what each other is doing, which is important too. And then the last thing there, our bigger little people from the high school, FFA came in and did some readings for teaching some mini lessons about agriculture and to our students. So that was really good, and whenever we can get the a little bit taller and older kids, all the little kids are just like fascinated by them. I know we are working, we've got the FCA students coming in March soon to read books to kids. So that's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So anytime we can get our high school kids into the elementary school, the kids love it. So yeah, that was just one example there.
Any questions? Mr. Taylor?
How about Terry?
Well, Terry told me this wall and didn't get hers turned in, and I'm sorry, I didn't even realize that, so I went through my packet after work. The one thing that we really have to celebrate, Kim Mitchell is here, and I just could not say enough good things about what Kim does with the robotics team. Saturday, we hosted, we tried to do a couple run-throughs, and the weather didn't work for us, so Saturday was our first contest, and I said to Kim, how can I help you? And she's like, really, I just need my guys to get here. Well, her guys are 3 former Centerville graduates, who one of them was the one who started by bugging her about this, that she created the whole program. And so it was just really phenomenal to watch those guys fly back across the country while you're studying to get your PhD, to come home and help your middle school robotics team get their first contest of the year off. So Kim did a great job with that. Julie Vanderlinden is our student council representative overseeing our program this year, and she ordered cookies from Molly Felton, and we sold those for each student and family the opportunity to buy one for their kids. And you talk about the community we live in. I had said I'll take care of any that aren't covered, so every child gets one. And we sent the flyers home, and the next day a lady called and said, my company in town is going to pay for any of students who don't have one. And then a couple parents reached out and said, hey, I'll make sure that if there's any student who doesn't have one. So I just think that you just can't say that enough. That's not always the way it is in every community. And so just grateful for who makes up our community and the way they love on all of our kids, even if they're big kids. The one thing I was just going to share that I think is really exciting, that I need to give Tyler Bays and Marcia Bowen a lot of credit for this. On Friday, we worked during PD. Kind of heard me talk about 5-Star, which is where the kids sign out of a room to go to the restroom or to go to their locker for things. I think our kids wish that it maybe didn't come in this year, but it has really managed our time in and time out much better. It's also alleviated behavior issues in the restroom. I just want to give you an example of what looking at data does. We have a great kid in our building, absolutely great kid, but already at this point in time, he has spent 3 full days worth of learning in the restroom. Now you think you don't think that's a big deal. This isn't someone who has a help. This isn't anything like that. But we take that data on our PD days, and that team looks at it, and then we connect with that student, and we're like, hey, what's going on in these 3 classes that you almost leave every day? Kind of come to talk about it, and then you kind of get to talk a little bit about how high is the engagement in that class, who's in that class, how do you feel? Are you comfortable in that class, or are you like, yeah, you know what, this isn't my go-to house or whatever. So that data has really led us to dive down and know where all students are, not only physically, but socially and emotionally as well, and then to talk about what we can do to provide support there. So just really pleased about that. So Otherwise, you think I'm missing anything, Kim? I feel like I've been gone a little bit there, like, been out a couple weeks, so. I think that's it.
Any questions? Who's next?
Jenny?
I gotta stand up because I have to see you when I'm talking to you, so I'm sorry. At the high school, just a few things underneath the achievement piece, and I won't read them all to you, but I can certainly answer any questions if you have them. One thing I wanted to highlight was our extra support piece, which is that guided study hall. So students that are maybe on our failing list often or just have been gone a lot, believe it or not, our failing list closely correlates with our absenteeism list. So we're trying to put those kids into spaces as a smaller size of students with access to a certified teacher where they can really get specific help during that study hall time instead of sitting in a space where there isn't maybe so much academic push coming on. So this will help hopefully with some of that achievement. Culture-wise, we at the high school have sent out both student survey and staff survey, went over this in our professional development on Friday, went over the data with teachers. Staff survey was really positive. It was awesome. It was really good conversation at our PD meeting. And then the student survey was interesting. Also very positive. I was surprised at some things, but really some good pieces to our teachers just in terms of continuing to push our culture in the right direction and push our services for kids in the right direction in terms of what we are offering and really making kids feel welcome in the building. So I was impressed with that and happy to share that data with any of you if you want to see the specific data. And then down to families and community, so in the month of March, I want to schedule, and we have scheduled a meeting on March 4th with senior students and their parents. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on this spring, and it goes really fast. So I just want to make sure that all of our seniors are really in the spot that they want to be in terms of their academic achievement, because graduation's coming and they have to meet certain requirements for that. But also just information on scholarship opportunities that are still available for kids. Obviously, we're trying to get all kids to fill out the FAFSA. That's a big thing for our state right now, and we're really pushing that. And then post-secondary opportunities. We have a really big opportunity with our CCTC coach, who's Jill Whistler, in terms of providing post-secondary opportunities for kids, not just with Indian Hills, but with any post-secondary opportunity, whether it's in our town or whether it's with another college or university, military, whatever it is that those kids are looking forward to doing. So I plan to do that same thing about a week later with juniors and junior parents, because their conversation will look different in terms of they've got another year to complete some requirements, but they need to be on top of some things. And then sophomores will follow in April with just opportunities that they will have as juniors that might entice them into some futuristic type things that we want to really push and get them enrolled in, and really let parents know what those opportunities are. And then in May, we'll do that same thing with freshmen, really look at their 4-year plan and try to help guide them then as sophomores into really start thinking more about what they want to accomplish in high school instead of waiting for the end to do that. So, any questions for me?
I know, I would certainly like to get both the staff and student results on those surveys.
Sure.
Like, that would be an interesting perspective to see.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Taylor?
Okay, so next on our agenda, we have a couple closed sessions. So at this time, as soon as we are ready to depart from here, we'll all leave the room and I'll come back in with the first closed session, folks. For that time, I will leave while the board deliberates after we make our presentation. I'll bring the building principal for each building with me for those. And then after that, we can do superintendent report, board takeaways, and adjournment. So while there will still be a small amount of meeting after that, principals and directors, other than Cameron and the principals who need to stay for closed sessions, you're free to go, and Sean boys watching online, and then.
Does anybody have an update on the school?
We got a little while, so. So thank you. I think if we all leave at this time, I'll bring in the first closed session with me. Or do you want to have a short recess before that, or do you want to?
Short recess.
That it was 24 hours. I don't like this. Like, well, we do that so often.
I have all that stuff when I was in trouble.
Sorry, a second.
Yeah, that would be nice. Honestly, I had to cut out, I forgot. I cut it out, I thought, I got to take this to camera tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably close the chapter on
Sounds good. The barter.
She worked, she did it.
Yeah, that's right. Right now, with Mr. Taylor's got lead, and then there's two, what we call closed sessions.
Oh, very good.
They'll come back in.
So we know who's going first.
As a teacher, I think you're about to be out. So you guys go out there with Mr. Taylor, there's two of you, and we do one at a time. Yeah.
No, it's the other student, he said he's starting with the high school student, Kenny. Oh, so we're starting with the high school, that's what you just said.
Yeah, so you need to go out there with Mr. Taylor.
Jill Whistler and Robin Spurgeon are kind of tag teaming putting that together.
Okay.
There's a big group of that, and Jennifer Benz is helping out with that, but yeah, we're still, that's gonna be very, we've got like 7,500 tables coming, 75 different businesses and organizations.
Yep, you just wait out there until they get
I would
ready
like
to
to
come
volunteer to
down.
be there for business.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, so shoot me an email and I can forward it to Jill or she'll
Thank you.
tell any, yeah,
All right.
absolutely,
It's like
yes.
the worst kind of
I'm selfish, I wanna go. I wanna watch the game too, but that's my takeaway.
Where you work? Little things, you know, not making that, just the kids that. We're gonna have some cool, we're not having giveaways, but we're gonna go. The coolest spots.
I'm stoked, I can't wait. We got
And we went to Walmart.
You gotta read.
What's that?
You still gotta read going for the session, right? Sometimes?
Yeah.
That's why I'm not done.
Yes. So kids will like.
So,
Yeah.
Just making sure, I didn't end the year.
esports team?
Just get in.
Smaller numbers, different games in between seasons.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see what next season brings, and then
next year's good, but
Yeah.
it's our fourth
We
year
should
now.
be the ones that do that.
4 years straight of the same game, and actually the
That's
spring.
crazy.
So this spring, I'm actually gonna play a different game
Yeah,
than
they're
we have in the past, it's always been least popular.
Yeah.
So I'm hope that brings some interest, and I definitely have the 6 kids that were here last season, also will come back if you play that game.
Yeah.
Catering to them, trying to also see, feel them out.
Sure. What game are you playing?
It'll be a game called Valorant,
Uh-huh.
it's newer, which is cool, but
Yeah.
I think we need all of these. I think
There
there's
you go.
3 out there, so.
Sorry. You're all right.
Me and you?
Yep. Sounds good. We don't have to do civic take care of it.
No, we don't, no. We haven't always read something about it. Oh, you can read it.
I'm not worried about it. I could have called you. I know, I could have called you. I thought I could call and get this.
Yeah.
I normally have my notifications on my work phone, like, where I put my keys when I walk in the store, so it's so easy, I don't really hear somewhere in my house.
Yeah.
Walk by the
Well,
door.
and I'm thinking, I know that there's no way it's gone. I just couldn't figure out how to.
I'm just glad you tried.
I know, me too. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh. But I don't know why it would have opened that way. I've used it like 10 times. I must
Two
have.
accounts, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but I wasn't signing each time. I must have just opened, like when I searched for it, I must have just opened the one that was linked to that account. And because I've used that same document and made copies for every teacher, like, so I don't know. I'm glad.
I wasn't joking. I let you go over there to go straight to the garage.
I
All right, board, are you ready for me to?
Are you taking off or saying?
No.
Okay, because
She's
I was
in the
gonna,
front.
be here for this.
okay, I was gonna say during my board takeaways, I was gonna mention I really liked what you're doing with your meetings with the different grade levels and the parents. I think
Oh, yeah.
that is just,
Yeah.
so I wanted to.
Yeah,
really
you know what,
give-
helps us
Good to see
answer a
ya.
lot of questions.
Oh,
one
yeah.
time.
And you know what, you hear so many people say, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know this, don't do that, but at least you know you've done the next step.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, we
wonderful.
said about the.
Yes.
Thank you.
There, Cameron closes the door when he leaves, he has to pick off the equipment there. You're welcome to scooch the table over to you if you like.
Are we ready? We can close the door, please.
We have to leave.
Oh,
Not yet.
Cameron,
oh, yeah, Cameron gets that, that's right, I forgot. Okay, at this part of the meeting, we are ready to go to closed session. Authorized by Iowa Code 21.5 to review or discuss records of which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential, and Iowa Code Section 21.5 to discuss whether to conduct a hearing or to conduct hearings to suspend or expel a student. So,
Do we have advice of counsel that this is authorized?
We're working off the advice of counsel that we've used for similar cases this year.
Thank you.
okay, we have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call, yes, excuse me.
Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Heffron,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes,
Liscus.
Yes.
okay. Now we are ready. Okay, we are back in open session.
Okay. I would like to move to accept the agreement to intervene in lieu of expulsion on a tier 1 basis with the amendments discussed in closed session.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We will ask for a roll call vote on this.
Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Heffron,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas,
Excuse me, I thought you were going to abstain.
All right. Already.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I say yes.
Liscus.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're in, young lady.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we are ready to go into, bring the next, as they say, bring the next contestants
We gotta go through the ritual.
in. So we wait till they come in the room.
Moving into close.
Well,
We need to go to close.
we were going to close before I come in.
Okay,
Otherwise, I'll be.
Yep.
You guys need to
Okay.
read all this stuff again.
so do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I so move.
Second.
Okay. For the record, do we need to read the action
Yes.
item?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, this is the other one?
This is the second one, yes.
So I think, Mike, you need to read the action item, then we do that.
Yes.
So we don't have.
Closed session authorized by code section 21.5 to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential in Iowa Code 21.5 to discuss whether to conduct a hearing or to conduct hearings to suspend or expel a student. And we have a motion
I so move.
and a second.
Second.
All those in favor of going into closed session, roll call.
Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Heffron.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Liscus.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're open.
Do we have a motion to go back into open session?
Right, yeah, consensus.
That's what I
Just
asked.
consensus does it.
That's what I asked earlier. They said yes.
We have to do the rest of it.
So right now,
Procedures get made. Matter where.
Okay, so what I'm gonna let you down, and what this starts with is you walk in the office as soon as you get there. You'll be wanted every day, no more babes. You will not have access to your locker, so you'll be walked to a class.
Yes, please, thank you.
Last time I know, it'd be Terry Schofield.
It never happens again. If you decide that, it never happens
I never got back in.
Heck, we do, we gotta send a police officer around the front.
Get it back on the water. Taking your job from you, Cameron.
I was wondering what happened.
Because they're coming.
We didn't know if you ran off or not. Mike said I would.
No, tomorrow, yes.
I forgot to push the buttons.
Okay, we're back in open session. And, looking for a motion.
I move to accept the agreement to intervene in lieu of expulsion Tier 1 with the modified conditions as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those, is this a roll call?
Yeah.
Roll call vote?
Berger,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Heffernan,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Liskus.
Yes.
Motion has passed. I think we're down to superintendent's report.
Pretty much everything that I've got listed on my report is superficial after the last, about hour of our time, I think. But I will say a couple interesting things to look at, a couple great basketball seasons this year for our kids. Our boys are still, playing a game right now. Last I heard they were up, so I'm pretty excited about that. You've probably seen a plethora of ads from the school district between Ottumwa Radio and Go Pitch. You can continue to check those out. Actually, the funny thing is we've been recording short vignettes with kids to put on during games, and after kids started to hear and teachers started to hear, oh wait, that person talked about this good thing going on in the school, other people have started requesting, hey, can I get together with AJ and record one of those things about what I like? So we're getting a lot of people who are very excited to share what they're proud about as a Centerville student or staff. So that is a really awesome thing to get out of this. Mrs. Schofield stole one of mine. We did have a couple teams qualify for middle school robotics state. So we'll get to take a group to state contest, which will be really exciting. And I think most importantly, the thing that makes everything more superficial is I am really proud, and I'm not just saying this because you'll evaluate me in the next couple of months, I promise, but I'm really proud to work with a group of people who take so seriously the awesome, and when I say awesome, I mean large, responsibility that we have for students as a school board, and really cares about seeing that our kids get what they need to be able to be successful. I just really appreciate the way all of you take things so seriously and you look at all angles to try to do well for all of our kids. So thanks for being a good group to work with.
Anything else?
That seems like a good note to end on.
That sounds like a good note to end on. I did want to add that, I didn't mean to interfere.
No, you're good.
The board expressed some concerns about our advertising being tied to bike night. That's
Oh,
all.
yes, yeah, I need to report back on that, thank
Tell
you.
them about it.
That was actually shifted to the fair instead of bike night, so, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we're down to, board takeaways. Who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Okay,
God, it seems like we've been here for quite a while, so I'll try to keep it. One thing, I know in the past we've talked about, and kind of strayed away from it because of some other issues with some other civic organizations. I would like for us to visit the idea of consent agenda moving forward. I would save a lot of our time, unless there's something big that needs to be pulled out, but I would like us to look at that to help get through some of the procedural. I'd also like to put directors' reports closer to the top of that, just because of the fact that they're here all day, and some of this, they may not necessarily need to be here. And then lastly, Rotary Students of the Month, Howard Middle School, Seminole High School, this Wednesday at the hospital, conference room A and B at noon. If you are available, please come out and help us celebrate some of our students.
I guess I'll go next. There's so many things we did today. I guess the one thing that was on one of the reports that nothing was said, was the police department was at the elementary school greeting the kids. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. And the exchange student being here, I don't want to take anybody else, but I think the exchange student program is so good, and obviously he's a fantastic kid to have here. But I think the exchange students we've had in the past have been very good too. And, you know, when we were lucky enough to have a Rotary program going for exchange, it was so valuable to have the kids here. And it's just the fact that some of these kids don't travel a lot. And it gives them an idea. You know, this kid from Thailand or Norway or wherever, Chile, they're pretty cool. They're just normal kids. That's
Mr. Whiskers.
Mine has to do with policy, specifically with the graduation. I'm glad the board did that. As we've gone through a lot of policies, what I was thinking through earlier was, there's a lot of state mandated policies, and there's some what I'll call kind of elected policies. And an elected policy being a graduation thing. So what I would throw out there is what I wrote down is this, it's a question, are we gonna have an ISB workshop, like board workshop like we've done in the past, and or board retreat, because I think that would be a good time to dig deep into some of the elected policies, such as what you talked about with the graduation thing. I think that's something that'll take some deep discussion, because the policies are basically, Mark does all the legal research and brings them to us, but I think there's some electives that we need to really dig into deeper, and that would be 2 avenues to do that.
Good idea. Good idea.
My turn?
Yeah.
I always really enjoy the principal reports. You know, you hear so much about athletics and different competitions going on in the schools, but you know, you don't really get to hear about some of these other things. And I really like Jenny Donna's report about meeting with the seniors and their parents, and then, you know, a little later on, going down each grade level. And I thought, you know, how smart, and even at the lower grade levels, especially at the lower grade levels, to get people thinking in certain terms and planning a little bit earlier. I just think, you know, let's not wait until there's a problem, let's be proactive, and I think that's great.
I love the interplay.
Well, I guess I was just sitting here thinking, with some of the issues that came up here and that I see in our world today, that we live in a pretty amazing time to be alive. And to be in a position that we're in, where we're in this, the world's moving pretty fast and in some unknown directions. And it's pretty, having kids this age, it's a pretty interesting time to be alive. And I think it's a big responsibility for all of us to be a part of that, and it's pretty exciting at the same time. There.
I think I'll just hit on something I touched on. I think we need to continue looking at the since we are in a competitive world now for education, we need to look at, stop, almost, we need to look at shared agreements. Yeah. So I think that's, moving forward, that will help us tremendously in our district.
Along that line, open enrollment kind of came up. And I know we've talked about it at the last meeting or maybe the meeting before, and I have certainly wrestled with this idea. And I know there's some feeling that I've got that if you open and roll out, you can't come back and compete. And I've reconciled with myself is that when a student open and rolls out, they're not ours anymore. They're their student. And if we're going to have a sharing agreement that says, Moulton, you can send 4 kids over here for the swim team, but that 5th kid that opened and rolled over, we're not taking him. That's discriminatory. And it falls back on, I think what's best for kids is what we're all about. Whether it's our kids or their kids, it's kids. And if it's best for kids, it's probably best for us. Moving forward, I think the 28 agreements should be some cost sharing involved. I think those need to be a method. But I personally, right now, anyway, you guys might change my mind, you do that all the time, but I would not endorse any sort of language that prevented a kid that opened and rolled out from being able to come back. And I would just ask you to think about that and reconcile it in your own mind. Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right.
6 moments.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Anybody else?